morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is probably one of the craziest setups out of the entire time that I've been on YouTube because I'm sitting on my living room floor. There's a couple reasons for that, but I guess I should update you with saying that I am officially back home, which a lot of you guys have seen because it's on my community page. But just in case you haven't, I'm officially back home. With that, when I say home, I mean that I'm in my apartment. And I know I didn't really update you guys with me having an apartment or anything like that, but just to give you a background, I did get an apartment a month before I left. I did it for specific reasons, and I didn't necessarily open up about that because I knew that it would be weird for me to get an apartment and then leave. For a lot of people who don't really know everything about what has been going on in the last few months. So there's that. I officially came back. I did try to furnish it a little bit before I left, but we can get into that in the next video. Right now, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of the huge things that I've learned while being in Bali, some of the things that I believe God instinctively showed me, and just everything in between. I'm gonna try to be as informal as possible because sometimes when I get too formal, I end up not having everything out in the open. So I don't know, I just want to be able to share everything. So I'm gonna try to get relaxed. I don't know, something about being in front of the camera makes me feel like I gotta talk like I'm in a job interview or something. But okay, I'm just gonna get straight into it. I did put it in my notes, some of the main things that I wanted to talk about, but they're really just bullet points. But I want to start off with saying that I don't believe in coincidences. I truly believe that when God does something for one person, he does it to impact a multitude. And I don't believe that he told me to do any of what I've done and he didn't take into account that he provided a platform for me. So with me sharing everything that I am sharing on YouTube and me coming out with this video and the things that I believe that he showed me, I want you to consider that it may be a message for you too, because if you're watching and I'm talking about something that touches you in a way, I believe, and you should too, that it may be God speaking to you on some subjects. So keep that in mind when I speak about some of these things, because God does not bless us just for us. He blesses us for multiple people and for multiple reasons. Going into Bali, I didn't know everything. I've said that multiple times. I got backlash for it. It's such a weird thing to say out loud, but it's the truth, and that's what a lot of faith is. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtain a good report. So we understand that this is something that we have to grow and develop in. This is something we have to lean on when things don't always look the way that we expect, especially when there's a word from God in it. You know what I'm saying? And so me not knowing what I was doing, essentially, I was very confused going into Bali. Not confused, I don't want to use that word. I was very unaware of what I was to do. I was truly dependent on whatever God had to say, and I did make certain goals on my own, but I was so flexible in that area because I just did not want to make it my trip. I didn't want to make it a true vacation. You get what I'm saying? I did want to enjoy, because I do believe that, you know, you can enjoy the assignments that God places in your life. You don't have to literally be stuck waiting for the next word, but at the same time, you definitely don't want to miss it. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I had to be very balanced. I didn't really know what I would do after either. There were a lot of things that I just had up in the air. I remember asking God before I left, what would I do with my car? Because in my mind, I'm like, why would you call me into Bali unless you wanted me to be there forever? Like, I just had it in my mind that this was not going to be a short-term thing. And this was earlier in the year before, you know, time progressed and I ended up getting more words from Bali, from God. But I originally thought that I was going to be in Bali for a very long time. And so I'm like, I'm not about to be paying for my car note, you know, while I'm out in Bali. So what do? Do I give the car away? Do I give it back? And I'm so grateful that God was very patient with me, and in time revealed to me that it was not going to be as long as I thought. And in that, he blessed me with the wisdom of just putting aside the certain amount of money I needed to pay off the car note per month, and just to pay it off while I was there. You know what I'm saying? So it worked out. And that's just an example of some of the things I was truly unaware of. So now let's truly get into it. These are the things that I believe that God showed me while I was out in Bali. Ooh, let's get into it. Oh, I'm so excited to share it because I've been holding out and just writing the notes down. But what I have first on my list is God isolated me. And I know that seems very obvious. You know, you go to a different country, it's sort of obvious, you know what I'm saying? But when you really consider it, and this is something that I had to see, I didn't see until a little bit later, but I think that when I said I was going to Bali, a lot of people were like, why Bali? And I never had it in my mind that God was having me go to Bali because of Bali, but that there was something that he could do in Bali that was different from other places. And what he showed me eventually was that, you know, Bali's time difference is 12 hours ahead of Eastern time, which is where I stay. I stay in the Midwest. So that means that, like I've said in previous videos, everybody that I love, everybody that I speak to on a regular, they would be asleep when I was awake. Or when I was asleep, they would be awake. And so that meant that I was isolated, not only in being in a different place, you know, different country, but also in communication. I wouldn't be able to talk to my people, the people that support me, the people that I love, you know what I'm saying? He truly isolated me. That was something that really helped me to understand, like, we're not going to see the big picture all the time, but God is so strategic in that way. You know, some of the things that I learned in Bali, I even questioned God in moments and was like, well, I could have did this at home. I could have, some of this stuff that I felt, you know, I was growing in Bali, I could have done at home, but God really showed me, like, you wouldn't have. And you wouldn't have had the resources like I provided for you out here because the currency difference. You know, I wouldn't have been able to take that much time off in the U.S. without having so much anxiety because prices are so much higher out here. But because he took me to a place where I was able to afford my daily, you know, livelihood, I was able to not focus so much on finances, but on the things that he was showing me. And there would have been no way that I would have been able to do that with, you know, U.S. currency. Like I said, I believe that it's not so much the significance of Bali, but it's what God could do in Bali that made it such a strategic thing, if that makes sense. When I first started my faith walk back in 2019, the way that I truly had the opportunity to grow in my faith was me being over the road. I've expressed this on my channel in one of my early videos, but that's how I really grew close to God. I knew who God was and I believed in God, but I wasn't walking with God. I wasn't following Christ. And I think that once I got over the road, God really isolated me. And that's what truly propelled me in my faith. My first year over the road was so substantial to my Christianity, pretty much, who I am as a woman of God. That was such a foundational part of my faith walk. So knowing that God isolated me again, I could tell that he was preparing me for the next season, and that he was trying to get me to grow in areas that I did not know I needed to grow in, or that I didn't have the opportunity to grow in. So with that, he really taught me how to dwell while I was in Bali. And dwelling in God's presence takes work. It's not something that I think people really think about, because you can, you know, spend a couple minutes reading the Bible, or you can say your prayer in the morning, say your prayer before bed, you can pray in the shower, you can talk to God while you're driving to work and things like that, you know what I'm saying? But dwelling and making it a habit, as in not necessarily putting time aside for God, but instead walking with him throughout the day. Does that make sense? Where you're not necessarily saying, all right, now I'm closing the door on my time with God. Now let me finally go do what I was trying to do. But instead, allowing my time with God to permeate through my entire day. For example, if I'm going to the store, keeping a conscious thought on, God being with me while I'm in the store, speaking to him, keeping the communication open, and allowing God to take me along through the day. That's something that I really got to practice out in Bali, because I didn't really have any other priorities. I wasn't working. I wasn't even distracted by the people that I love, because I was not at home and I was not able to really speak with them. That really grew my faith and my communication with God in a way that I had not known could be done. And it's not this grandiose thing where it's like, now I am, a next level Christian. No, I still have obviously a bunch of things that I need to work on. But I noticed that some of the things I had questions to, I now have something to lean on, because I took the time to speak to God about those things. I took the time to experiment with how I walk in a way that I was able to solely focus on my relationship with God, with Christ. So that really, really helped me. And I don't see that I would have been able to do that with the regular woes and flows of my daily life at home. He trained my ear to hear him. He trained my ear to recognize that he speaks to me more often than I thought or really considered, because I was so busy. And he showed me ultimately how that I needed to depend more on him. And he showed me that through needing to be dependent on him, not knowing why the heck I was in Bali to begin with. So he showed me that he was worthy to be dependent on, which was obvious, but you can think that and subconsciously still be dependent on yourself. He reminded me that I needed to literally consider him in everything. With obedience, not only did he show me how important it was to be obedient, but that I wouldn't understand some of the things that he would tell me to do, and that I probably wouldn't understand the fullness of it for as long as I live. But one big thing that he showed me is that being obedient is not always going to equal reward immediately. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because when I came to Bali, it wasn't so much that I was expecting some grandiose present for being, obedient, but that I expected to know all of why I was in Bali, or better yet, to have a huge assignment there that had my name written all over it once I got there, and I was prepared for something like that. But what he showed me was something so intricate and small, or small to my eye anyway. And it was that it was not a big gift basket, but instead it was like a box of small trinkets that he was giving to me one by one. What he taught me in that moment was that being obedient does not mean that I'm going to understand everything all in that same moment, but that he is such a good God. He is such a strategic God that he's not going to have me do something and not have me benefit from it, not have me grow in it, not have it affect others in a positive way. And I do believe that though I don't know everything, the things that he did reveal to me of why I went there was rewarding enough once I let go of the expectation that there would be something huge there for me to tackle, because I'm thinking once I go to Bali, there's going to be a huge thing with my name on it. Not that I knew exactly what it would be, but that it would be something huge for me to do. And what he showed me was that, no, I need you to sit still. You've never sat still like how I'm going to have you sit still, and I'm going to show you about yourself. And this is where we get into the nitty gritty. This was something huge that he showed me. And wow, I just saying it out loud it's starting to feel like an even bigger blessing than when it originally happened. But okay, when I was okay, when I was here, before I left Bali, before I left for Bali, I was doing regional for Crete, and I was driving. You know, I remember praying, multiple times and telling God, along the rest of my prayer, because I would pray about a lot of things, and I would, open up about things. But one of the things that I always told God, and I told him from a very humble place, because I didn't want to complain, but I knew that I had to come to him with these things. I told him that I was tired. And at first I would feel guilty for telling him that I was tired, but I knew that I had to be open with him, and I wanted him to show me the right way to go about it. So when I came to him and I was open with him and telling him I'm tired, I didn't really even know what that meant, because, maybe it was a hormonal thing, or maybe it was that, I was working too much, or maybe it was that I was dealing with a lot. But what I noticed was every time I would, I I would come home every week from work, and I would take the 34-hour reset, and I would chill, or I would get myself prepared to go back on the road, or maybe even if I took a vacation and I left for another state or whatever, I would still, it was like I bounced the ball. I would feel a little bit of relief, but then I'd come back in and I'd be tired again. And I kept praying to God and telling him, like, I'm tired and I don't know how to combat it. I don't know what's wrong. Fast forward to me coming to Bali, I had in my mind, well, now this is I believe that God is blessing me with rest so that I can come back home and be refreshed. And so that was like another blessing that I felt was obvious, right? So when I got into Bali, a week went by. I wasn't really getting much sleep because I was trying to stay up for the sake of spending time for the sake of communicating with my family, and that didn't necessarily work out. And so I started sleeping regularly in the time zone in Bali, and I started getting my 8 hours of sleep, and weeks went by, and I would say by the fourth week, I started to realize I'm still tired. As a matter of fact, I feel even more tired because I've rested and the rest isn't helping. And it placed me in a low mood for a moment. I had highs and lows out there, but the realization that I wasn't getting rest like I thought I should have really concerned me, and I didn't really understand why that was. It was confusing to me, but it was definitely eye-opening, and I came to God with it, and I'm like, okay, I should not be tired right now. I have no reason to be tired. I have rested. I am in another country. I'm able to, do the things that I actually want to do or have wanted to do but didn't have the time. And this doesn't make sense. And what God revealed to me was that I was never physically tired, but that I was always mentally tired. And I didn't really even have time to process that because I was always going places and doing things and, making moves. I thought it was just me doing a lot, but turns out God revealed to me that I'm an overthinker. And I know a lot of us are overthinkers, but it was to the point where I couldn't even get out the bed because me getting out the bed was exhausting for a while. Not necessarily exhausting physically, but exhausting as in my brain would get foggy. I would be tired, like mentally. And I think that the thing is once I came to Bali and I sat still, all I had was my thoughts. I didn't have anything to truly distract me. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I truly had the goals that I had and the conversation with God and the expectation of what He would do. And, I had things that I wanted to do once I got back home, but didn't know necessarily when I would come back home and all of these things. And I sat with my mind for a lot, and it fatigued me greatly. And I started to get anxiety too, just in the expectation and the not knowing when God would show me certain things, and just all of that. All of that aided in me being tired. And what God showed me was that a big reason why I've always felt somewhat tired, especially when I was over the road, is because not only is it when you're driving, you have the opportunity to think, you're not distracted at all, but also because I internalize everything, I'm not organized. I have an idea of what I want to do. I make plans for what I want to do, but do I write them down? No. I might journal here and there. Actually, I journal a lot, but I'm not necessarily being organized with my thoughts. In other words, my calendar is in here. My planner is in here. My therapist is in here. My processor is in here. Everything is in here. And I'm overworking here. I'm overworking this. I have to forcibly and in discipline bring what's in here out, because I cannot function. The older I get, the more information I get, the more wisdom I try to grow in, the more information that I need to process and internalize. And these things end up just increasingly make me more tired as the older I get. And that's something that He revealed to me. And in that, He told me to go to therapy, to get back into therapy, because this was starting to give me anxiety. And it was permeating in so many other areas of my life, where I started to procrastinate more and more, because I had ideas, I had plans, I had goals, I had thoughts, I had past situations that I was trying to process. And so He showed me I can't function like that going forward. I used to tell myself that I wasn't a planner girl to have a physical planner, because I wasn't disciplined enough to continue to go back to it. But He showed me I can't use that as an excuse anymore. He showed me that I can't be disorganized anymore. I have to organize myself, because if not, I get tired. If not, I get unfocused. I get fatigued. I get irritable. I get anxious. I have too much going for me in my mind. I have too much going on in my mind that I can't even function physically. And so in Bali, I started therapy. I originally did therapy with BetterHelp. I did that for about 2 years, and then I stopped. And once I got into Bali and He told me to start back, I did faithful counseling. And I've been doing that since, I want to say, September. And the therapist that I have now, she asks the right questions. And I didn't really know that therapy wasn't really working for me until I got her, because now with the therapy that she's providing for me, this is sort of what I needed the whole time. And so far, therapy was decent for me, with my previous times in therapy, but they weren't getting deep like I needed them to. So, yeah. So that was a huge revelation. I wouldn't have been able to really understand that because, when you're in your own environment, you're always going to have something to do. And so you're always going to subconsciously think that because you're tired because you always got something to do. Well, God sat me down. God took me all across the country and sat me down. I had no priorities, no responsibilities. And he said, now look, you're still tired. Fix it. This is how you fix it. And that helped me so much because it also showed me that I need to step it up in my womanhood. I need to step it up in in my responsibilities. I can't just do things internally anymore. I do have to plan things out. That's how I grow. I would have never been able to truly see that because I would have always sort of attributed it to what's always been on my plate. God took the plate away. So that was a huge revelation. There are other things on my list too that he showed me. Obviously, he showed me flaws that I had that I needed to grow in, like not being as disciplined or consistent. There are moments where I fall off, and a lot of that was because I was tired, but other parts of it is just because I have to build endurance in certain things that I wasn't really growing in before. That I wasn't really growing in before. And he's also shown me my interests. I've documented some of these things. Me painting, a huge interest of mine. I didn't really know that I enjoyed it because I didn't do it before. But going to Bali, obviously I could have done it at home, but I probably wouldn't have. So, he showed me that I like to paint, that I am actually a little more creative. I didn't think that I was as creative as, you know, I didn't really have an idea of how creative I was until I got a chance to experience some of those things. So, those are small things, but I think they really did play a part in the experience that God has shown me in the bigger picture, truly, of him showing me where in the areas that I could grow, the areas that I need to grow, and things like that. I also got to reflect a lot out there about some of the boundaries that I have to place in my life now that I'm getting older, some of the goals that I want now. He's actually changed my mind on a few things that I didn't really think about before going out there. It's not that I couldn't have, but that, when you're sat down, you just end up thinking about a lot more. My views have changed about certain things. For example, when I left to go out there, I always knew that I would be a mom eventually, but going out there, I told myself that I really don't want to be a mom though. Like, because if I'm candid with you guys, I felt a long time ago that God was showing me that I would be a mom. I'll one day open up about how I believe that God showed me that, but that doesn't mean that I wanted to be one. I always just expected that time would come eventually. And leaving out, and going to Bali, I remember feeling, I was in a season where I was like, look, Lord, if I never have children, that's cool with me. I know you said I would have kids, but just in case I misunderstood you, just know I ain't tripping on that. Like, I'm not a kid person. I don't, want to have kids. I'm not really into being pregnant. I don't really want none of that. Like, I don't want none of that smoke. And once I got to Bali, I don't even think there was any physical thing that happened. It wasn't even the fact that it was, it wasn't Bali. It was the season, I guess. But my desire started to, not even desire, because I don't desire kids, but that my idea of kids started to shift. Now, it may just be something small, like maybe it's just the season, maybe I'm just wishy-washy, because I don't necessarily know if that was an intention for God or with God, or if it was just a certain feeling, so take this with a grain of salt with me. But I do want to openly admit that I feel like my views have shifted, where I'm like, against having kids. Not like I was before. I'm still at that place where I'm like, if I never have kids, so be it. But I'm not so much like, oh, I can't. I just don't want to have kids. I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to give birth. I don't want to do this. I sort of feel like I grew up a little bit in a place where it's like, I can do that. Like it's gonna take a lot of me, but it's not gonna be as much of, I don't feel like it would be as much of a burden as I originally felt. So I don't know. Maybe I grew in that area. Maybe I don't know. Another thing that he showed me is that I have to step it up in the generosity area. I've always felt that I was pretty generous, but going to Bali and it wasn't even Bali. It was that I was able to listen to more sermons. I was able to spend time with God more, read the Bible more, and just ponder on certain things. And what really stood out to me is that there's always something I can do for someone else. And I think I didn't really have that in my mind, subconsciously ever. When I found the time to be generous, or if the opportunity came, I would be generous, but I never really sought out generosity. And once I got into Bali and spent time and those revelations came, I started to realize I have to start seeking opportunities to be generous. I have to start being more intentional in that area. And so I got a chance to donate. I did apply for volunteer work. I didn't really get anything back, but in the meantime, I was able to donate. I was able to support local businesses. I was able to. I ended up giving my my study Bible, donating that away. So it all worked out. It definitely showed me areas that I lack in and what I can do to improve. And so it was an eye-opening experience when it came to generosity as well. The thing about it is, I've said this in previous videos, but God knew I needed to rest. God knew I needed to leave. God knew what I needed to have that type of moment. He knew I needed a different time zone. He knew I needed to be able to not focus on finances. He knew that I needed to not know certain things in order for me to do that. It grew my faith. This was the biggest leap of faith I've ever taken in my life. And it grew my wisdom. It helped me to be more dependent on God. And ultimately, I got a reset. And the truth is, I would have never made this decision on my own. Never. I promise you that. I would have never decided to go to another state, another state for 3 months, let alone another country. I would have never chose to go anywhere long term like that, because that's just not my personality. It's never been in my bucket list, especially not alone. So God took me out of my comfort zone to grow me and develop me and cultivate something in me that I got to bring back home. And it wasn't the spirituality of Bali. It wasn't it wasn't so much Bali as it was the opportunity to be in a different environment, in an incubator. Because it felt like an incubator. It felt like he could have done this anywhere, but he chose a place that could be an incubator for me. And I think the beauty of it is that I'm still human. And with that, I understand that I'm not going to know everything. I'm not going to know the fullness of why of what all it did for me and those around me. I'm not going to know everything. I'm not going to know the full picture until I'm gone. And I get to truly ask him for real. And so it's like, I feel the growth and the experience that took place. But I know it's only the tip of the iceberg. I know that God has done so much more. So that was a leap of faith. I pray I don't have to do again. It's not going to resonate with everybody. Not everybody's going to understand. I understand that. And I do believe that God had me open up about this on my platform for a reason, because there may be somebody that has done something that they believe God has told them to do, and they probably have not seen the fullness of what that meant. But that does not mean that God doesn't honor your leap of faith. That does not mean that He's not going to show you things eventually, and that does not mean that He didn't do anything if you can't see it. And I think we have the expectation that it's going to be huge and it's going to be obvious. But God is intricate. God is strategic. He touches small things too. And I know 100% that the season that I just left was preparation for the season I'm walking into now. I know that because that's how God works. It's not just about faith, it's His pattern. It's how He's always done it. And even in the Bible, you've seen constant situations where God did things that people didn't understand, people didn't get, and then you see the other side of it. You see the reason why later. And there are moments where you don't see the fullness of why, but you know that God has a why. The truth is, I had fun. I met beautiful people. I got to donate. I gained skills. I gained hobbies. I've cried. I felt immense joy. And out of everything, I accomplished the leap of faith. With that, I just want to conclude with giving you guys an update on where I am now and what I may do and what my plans are for the future. So right now, I'm at home. I'm in my apartment. I'm getting things situated. And as for trucking, I am now at a place where trucking is no longer going to be my lifestyle. It is going to be my job. That being said, I'm looking for a local position. I don't like local, but I'm open to shifting in that area because I believe that my season now requires for me to be more stable, to be in a more stable season, to be in a more stable environment. I don't believe that I'm supposed to be going regional or over the road anymore, or at least not for a while. So I am looking currently for a local position. I will be documenting my local position once I get it, just like I've been doing in the past. So it's not to say that I'm not going to be showing trucking anymore, but it's going to be not a lifestyle. It's going to be my job. And so take it as in to say that you're going to see me both home and on the road, if that makes sense. And I hope that you guys are interested. I hope that you guys are excited because I'm super excited for what's coming next. And like I said in the beginning, God does not touch one person just for one person. He touches a multitude. So if this in any way resonated with you, just know that maybe you should pray about it. Maybe there are things that God is trying to open your eyes to. And maybe there's something that you might need to take a leap on. Maybe there's something you know that God is telling you to do that you have not done yet. But God is probably saying there's still time. I'm still here with you and I'm still asking of you. And so with that, I just want you to consider that there may be something He's telling you. Ultimately, I'm just so happy to be home. I'm so happy to have done the experience and now I'm ready to get back in the game. And now I just feel like such a renewed person with a cleansed vision of what I want to do now. So that being said, I'm going to end it here because it's probably long. But I hope that this affected you in a positive way. And I love you all so much. And I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye.